Okay, second graders, I hope this works. I had to make my own type of document camera to show you this activity. So just like in the video you watched, one of the options and one of the explorations you can do this week, and I'd like you to do, is to find a flower and dissect the flower to explore the parts of that flower. So to be ready for this, I have my parts of a flower sheet so that I can reference it in case I'm confused. I have this sheet, which is this page I printed out, which is also online. If you don't want to print it out, you can just get your own piece of paper and separate it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different parts. So, and label them petal, pollen, filament, anther, style, stigma, ovary, and sepal. And I'm going to have a crayon, marker, pen, and I'm going to need a knife. I want you to make sure that you're doing this with an adult or with an adult close by so that you can be safe. It can also be a plastic knife. I could not find a plastic knife at my house this evening, but you can always use a plastic knife. Now, before you get started and you've gathered these supplies, you also need to find a flower to dissect. And I live in a house and we have some flowers in our backyard. So I went and, sometimes it's kind of sad to pick some flowers, and I don't normally recommend picking leaves or too many flowers off of a plant, but scientists need to learn about the inside of different living things. And so sometimes they do dissections. And a dissection means cutting apart a living thing after it is no longer living, cutting it apart and looking at all the parts inside. It's how doctors and scientists have learned about the insides of animals and the insides of plants and over the years. Many years. So I picked one flower from a few different plants, and I hope you can see them all. And I'm just going to start with one of them. I'm going to do this activity with one of the flowers. And then if I'm interested or if there's more flowers nearby or at a neighbor's house, then I could possibly do this activity a second time, but with a different flower. So I have 3 flowers. This one's a little small, so I'm going to save that for later. I really like this one, and I think I'm going to do this one second, but I'm going to start with this flower because it's so interesting and I've never seen anything like it. So let's begin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first start by separating. If your flower has any leaves on it, you're going to separate the leaves from the stem. And then you're going to start to look for an example of each of the things that is listed on the worksheet. So we need a petal. So I'm going to gently take off a petal. Oh, and something else fell off too, which I know would be the sepal. Okay, so underneath, I hope you can see it all right, I have a few sepals. So I'm going to just take off the sepals and I'm going to place them on my paper down where it says sepal. And you can use tape to tape them on, or you can just draw them or just leave them there and then eventually take a picture. I'm going to tape it for right now. But again, you can just set them there and draw them later. You can tape a couple examples, or you can not tape them and just take a picture to have to remember. Okay? So now I am going to take a petal. So I already got the sepals off the bottom. I'm going to take off a couple of petals and I'm going to place them in the spot for petals. And I'm actually going to end up taking off all of the petals so that I can observe it. Now this flower is so interesting. I'm hoping I'm going to get all the parts correct because every flower, each of these parts will look just a little bit different. So this is a flower I'm not familiar with doing before. Then I'm going to take off all of the petals now and the stem. So I am just left with the inside parts. Now, to be honest, boys and girls, I don't even know what this plant and this flower is called. It grows over my fence from my neighbors, okay? So I am not sure what all these little parts are. I don't know why they're important. They're certainly not the pistil or the stamen, because I can see those parts really easily over here. So I'm just gonna leave that be for now. And I am going to observe my flower, and I'm going to see which part seems to be the pistil and which part seems to be the stamen. So the pistil is going to be the part that's connected to this part here, and it's going to be that part. Oh yeah, and look, oh, see, there's all the pollen here. So that means that these are the anthers. So I'm going to take off the little yellow anthers with the pollens, okay? And I'm actually going to also take one of the anthers, and this is pretty fun. I'm going to rub it on my sheet, and you see all the yellow pollen come off onto my paper. So I have some pollen here. I'm going to tape it so it doesn't get lost. I have the anther here, one example. And then I need the filament, which is holding up the anther. So on this one, it's not super long. It's so interesting. It's different than other flowers I have done. And I'm going to put it there. So I've done all the parts of the stamen. I have the filament, the anther, and the pollen. So now I need all the parts of the pistil. So that leaves me with the rest. And I'm just gonna pull off all these little beautiful purple parts because I'm not sure what fundamental part they play in this. And I'm gonna use my knife for this. So I have this big area at the bottom here, and this is where the stem was coming out. So I'm gonna cut this off right here because this is the ovary on the inside. This is the part where the eggs are waiting for the pollen to come down the style. And that is the part that's going to then grow and turn into the seeds and the fruit. Now, if I continue to take this apart, I have the long, tall part. I'm gonna pull off the rest of the filaments and the anthers. And I'm gonna cut it off. And this would be the style. That's the part that the pollen has to travel down to get to the ovary. And last, I have the stigma. And it's interesting, my hands are all sticky because it has all of the nectar inside as well. And so here we have the stigma, which is cool because it has all these dark purple parts that are to collect. So now I have dissected my flower sample, and I have collected parts of it on my worksheet, and I have completed this activity. Now I think what I would do is I would also now take a second flower, and I'm going to dissect it as well and then compare how they look the same or different. Thanks for joining me, guys. See you later. Bye. Okay, scientists, so I ended up doing 2 different types of flowers. Both of them I found in my backyard, and I'm gonna look at both of my dissection sheets and kind of compare the petals and the shapes and how they're different. The pollen, the sizes of the anthers, the sizes of the filaments. This flower over here, all of the parts were so tiny, and in fact I didn't think I could see them very well as I was dissecting, so I wrote little notes so that I would remember how small they were and to clarify. So every flower will have these main parts, but they will look different. The sepals will be different shapes, the ovaries might be different sizes. It might be hard to find on some plants and in some flowers, but I just want you to do your very best and send me pictures, especially of your completed dissection sheets because I find it really fascinating, and it shows that you are being a really observant scientist and finding examples of these parts of a flower in real life. So I hope you guys have had fun this week learning about the parts of a flower. There's a reason we learned about these so that we can now move on to learn about pollination and seed dispersal. So I hope you enjoyed. Bye.